I am the Chief Academic and Accountability Officer for District 97. We are so excited that you're able to join us this evening as we share our work around literacy instruction in the district. Just a quick note, we are recording this session and we'll both be sharing the recording with everyone as well as translating the transcript for our families. So many of you submitted questions to the team, and we will answer many of those questions actually during the presentation itself, as well as at the end of our session during a brief Q&A. So please settle in and we'll go ahead and get started. So we want to make sure that we ground our session in answering some key questions. We built the session around ensuring that you walk away knowing our approach to K-5 literacy instruction. We also want to answer two critical questions. How do we as a district support students who need additional support or enrichment in literacy in our general education classes? And how do we support students who require intensive supports through special education services noted on student IEPs? Finally, we'll end the session with addressing some common literacy questions that were surfaced by you. We have an amazing team of presenters tonight. You'll see them listed here in the order of appearance. Dr. Tawanda Lawrence is our Senior Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment. Jennifer Logan is our Elementary Curriculum Specialist for all 8 of our elementary schools. Emily Crehan is the Director of MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered to Systems of Support. Emily Dolan is joining us from Irving School live, where she serves as the MTSS interventionist. Donna Middleton is the Senior Director of Student Services, and Lauren Trout is the Student Services Coordinator who supports Hatch, Holmes, Lincoln, and Whittier. We also want to send a special shout out to Emily Finsky, our Director of Organizational Learning, for organizing and coordinating this session, as well as helping us move through our slides. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and talk through the District 97 approach to literacy instruction. So as we all know, literacy skill acquisition is complex. There are many, many facets to literacy instruction. However, the main components are listed here. Phonemic awareness is a fundamental building block in literacy. There are 44 English phonemes that make up the sounds in spoken language. Phonemes are the smallest units in spoken language and include consonant and vowel sounds. So for instance, there are 3 phonemes in the word cat, k, at. Phonemes also include letter combinations that make up a single sound, such as th and th. So we can replace that k that we hear in cat and with a th and arrive at that. So that awareness and the ability to manipulate sounds is phonemic awareness. Teachers spend about 10 minutes a day with Haggerty Phonics building those skills with students. Phonics requires children to understand that those sounds can be translated to written symbols as they learn to read and write. Phonics instruction takes place 20 to 30 minutes a day using phonics units of study and words their way. The ability for a student to read fluently and easily is addressed using reading units of study, one-to-one conferencing, and small group instruction 45 minutes daily. Academic vocabulary acquisition is also key in building a child's literacy skills and is supported via words their way and interactive read alouds 20 to 35 minutes per day. A student's ability to understand and interpret what they're reading is supported by reading units of study, interactive read alouds, one-to-one conferencing, and small group instruction, and takes place about 45 minutes a day. And finally, written expression requires students to pre-write, plan, draft, review, and revise their writing using writing units of study, which typically takes 45 minutes per day. I'll now hand it over to Dr. Lawrence to walk us through the balanced literacy components.
Thank you, Dr. Lofton. District 97 implements balanced literacy for grades K through 5. Balanced literacy allows teachers to be responsive to students' needs. So this approach really allows literacy instruction to include reading and writing workshop, in which teachers engage students in mini lessons, guided reading and writing, independent reading and writing, conferences, and partner work. Time is also set aside for shared reading, read aloud, word study, and close reading. Next slide, please. Reading and Writing Workshop is a component of balanced literacy and an instructional model that focuses on the strengths and needs of each student. It provides teachers time to give direct instruction to the entire class or in small groups as needed. It also affords teachers the opportunity to conference individually with readers and writers and conduct ongoing assessments to help inform their instruction. The workshop model enables teachers to know their students and to let them drive instruction in the classroom. Reading and Writing Workshop requires a shift from the teacher making all the choices and telling students what to learn within a text to students making choices, and through practice and application of skill-based lessons, learning as they read and write. So at this time, I'm going to pass the mic to Jennifer Logan, our elementary curriculum specialist. Next slide, please.
Here you'll see an anchor chart of the daily structure of the Reading and Writing Workshop model. Reading and Writing Workshops are deliberately designed to offer a simple and predictable environment so that the teacher can focus on the complex work of observing students' progress and teaching into their needs. Reading and Writing Workshop goes this way each and every day, beginning with the mini lesson, followed by independent work time, and always ending with the share. Research shows that during a 50-minute period, we tend to remember what comes first the best and remember what comes last second best. So workshop begins with a 10-minute mini lesson focused on one teaching point. Workshop ends with the share. The teacher repeats the earlier teaching point or shares something the students have done well. We also know that research shows that we are more likely to remember when we personally connect to the learning or access our previous knowledge before we begin. So each mini lesson begins with a connection or a personal anecdote or teaching move that helps students access their previous knowledge or connect their learning to the real world. And lastly, research shows that getting students immediately involved in new learning or practicing it enhances the memory of learning it. So students go off and practice the new learning, previously taught strategies, and or work on their individual goals. Next slide. Here you'll see images of District 97 students engaging in the workshop model. In a non-COVID year, students begin at the rug for the whole group mini lesson. Then they go off to independently work while the teacher is meeting with students in a one-to-one conference or a small group for differentiated instruction. Materials matter. We want students to get excited about learning. Here are images of Reading and Writing Workshop materials from classrooms across the district. I want to highlight the student book boxes. Those include self-selected texts as well as materials needed for workshop time. I also want to highlight the anchor charts. Anchor charts are created with students during the mini lessons and always are visible and accessible during the student work time. So what does balanced literacy look like? All students receive at least 90 minutes of ELA instruction a day. I'm just going to highlight a few of our curricular resources and practices. Haggerty Phonics is a program with structured and systematic daily phonemic awareness lessons, rhyming and onset fluency, isolating final or medial sounds, blending and segmenting words, syllables and phonemes, adding and deleting phonemes, substituting phonemes are just some of the skills that are taught every day. Interactive Read Aloud is a whole group teaching strategy where the classroom teacher selects a text slightly higher than the reading level of most students and intentionally stops to model thinking about reading and engage students in discussion. Shared reading is a whole group interactive reading experience that occurs when students join in or share the reading of a book or other text while being guided and supported by their teacher. All eyes are on the same text. The teacher explicitly models the skills of proficient readers, including decoding, reading with fluency, and expression. And finally, Words Their Way. Words Their Way is a hands-on, student-centered, assessment-driven developmental approach to word study, phonics, spelling, and vocabulary instruction. Students are assessed and placed in the developmental stage of spelling that is appropriate for them. Literacy assessments are ongoing. The teacher will closely monitor your child's progress through notes and running records taken during one-to-one conferencing and small group work. Rubrics, checklists, and stop and jots are used to assess your child's fluency, comprehension, written response, and participation in workshops. Running records are formalized oral reading assessments that record and analyze the miscues or deviations from a text that a student offers while reading aloud. And finally, ESGI is a digital platform that is used to assess reading foundational skills in grades K-2. As a district, our priority is to stay current with the most recent research on brain science. So here's a pretty detailed slide, but on the left, you will see the science of reading research. It says that students need a 4-part processing model for reading comprehension: phonological, orthographic, meaning, and context processing systems. In the center, you'll see the balanced literacy approach, which is the 3-keying system of meaning, structure, and visual. In D97, we are bridging the science of reading research with balanced literacy and providing our students with all the tools they need to be successful. Currently, our curricular resource is working on making some important shifts to address the science of reading research in a balanced literacy system. They are, in our kindergarten, the Reading Superpowers unit changed the picture power strategy. Teachers will not teach picture power as a strategy to identify words, but rather it will be taught later on as a comprehension strategy. This strategy has been replaced with slider power. Slider power will be taught in its place. Readers will slide out the unknown word to blend letters and sounds together. Decodable books are also available online that include sound spelling patterns that children learn and practice applying their phonics knowledge to the text. These books will be available for print version next year. There will also be a progression, or there is a progression of letter sounds that explicitly address how to decode short, phonetically regular words. Here's another slide with the science of reading research. On the left, you'll see that the science of reading research tells us that students need explicit, systematic instruction in phonics. In the balanced literacy system, phonics instruction is just one component of the approach. In District 97, we are currently working on bridging the science of reading research into balanced literacy by explicitly and systematically teaching the secrets of how to crack the written code. So here are a few of the phonics instruction must-haves: dedicated time, a scope and sequence, a linking chart and freeze cards, a robust collection of word lists, high leverage instructional routines, and a thoughtful assessment plan. I want to reiterate that this is something that is currently being worked on in District 97. Teachers College Reading and Writing Project is working on updating their current reading and writing units. These units will be coming out this summer and early next year. A few of the highlights from the units to come: there's an increase in mentor texts written by BIPOC authors by 75%. There is an ensuring access section in every lesson to help provide teachers with differentiated support. Classroom-ready conferences and small group are pre-planned for immediate teacher use. And there will be more embedded phonics and grammar in the reading and writing units, as well as embedded video and audio supports for multisensory learning. And now I am going to kick this off to Emily Crehan, our Director of MTSS.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Emily Crehan. I'm the Director of MTSS, and I have Emily Dolan joining me, and she's one of the district's MTSS interventionists at Irving. Over the next few slides, we're going to share a little bit about MTSS and how we support literacy in all of our schools. Next slide. All right, I wanted to start with our goals. We have two main focuses. One supports our students and ensures that they are receiving what they need to continue to grow as learners. And the other focus is on our staff and making sure that our systems are in place and that those systems are all equitable. All right, next slide. District 97 uses a diamond graphic to explain or define MTSS. Our diamond encompasses all our students, not just our students who struggle academically. This service delivery model ensures that all of our students are receiving support that allow them to achieve at high levels and make progress towards their learning goals. All the supports that we give students is evidence-based, it's implemented with fidelity, and it's data-driven. And the diamond has 5 different sections, as you can see. The far left side is our tier 3. Next to that in orange is our tier 2. The center area, that green area, is our tier 1. Then the blue section beside that is our tier plus. And finally, that far right side is our tier plus plus. We're going to go through each of these sections in the next few slides a little bit more. But before that, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on that data-driven part. So the next slide. All right, so we use many different assessments or screeners to see where our students are excelling and what areas they may need intervention in. Every school year, minus the few disrupted by COVID, we have 3 testing sessions that we call our benchmark assessment times. These happen at the very beginning of the year, right after winter break, mid-year, and then again at the very end of the year. During this time, students are assessed using all of those universal screeners. So we have students in grades 2 through 8 take the MAP test, which is an adaptive test that measures academic growth from season to season or from year to year. Students in K-5 are also assessed using the BAS, which stands for Benchmark Assessment System. And this allows teachers to identify each child's instructional and independent reading levels according to the Fontes and Pinnell text level gradient, which is leveled A to Z. Quick side note on that, we do not test our kindergartners in the fall. We give them time to adapt to school and grow as students. So their first testing time is that mid-year winter testing session. We also use Ames Web Plus as a universal screening tool. We test all of our kindergarten and first grade students, as well as all of our students with tier 2 or tier 3 needs in grades 2 through 8. Ames Web helps us identify at-risk students early. Then we can set goals, monitor their progress, and then we can differentiate and track the success of our targeted interventions and instruction. And then lastly, we test all of our kindergarten and first graders in early literacy skills, which includes like letter naming, letter sounds, high frequency words. We use a software called ESGI to help collect this data. And once students, something that's unique about that is once students show mastery in that skill, they test out of the assessment. So for example, once they read all of their letter names correctly, they won't need to be assessed in that skill again. And then in addition to all of our universal screeners, we also use many different forms of formative and summative assessments to learn about our students. I've listed a few of them here, but please know that this is not an exhaustive list. Teachers are monitoring student learning and progress in a number of ways throughout the school day and the school year. But all of this data helps us tier students and then design instruction to meet their individual needs. Over the next few slides, we're going to explain each tier in a little bit more depth. So next slide. We are going to start with our tier plus plus. This tier is designed for students who score collectively in that 95th to 99th percentile. This shows us that students have a strong understanding of the curriculum and the standards at this grade level, at their grade level. Students in this tier benefit from activities that really push their thinking. So instruction at this level includes small group push in and pull out, along with project-based learning and critical thinking skills. Next slide. Our next tier is tier plus. This tier is designed for students whose scores fall into the 70th to 94th percentile. These scores show us that students in this tier have a strong foundation for the curriculum and will benefit from extensions on the concepts and skills taught. Our tier plus instruction often looks like small groups within the classroom, independent work, leveled work, as well as some strategy work. Next slide. Our tier 1 is where Emily Dolan is going to take over. So I'm going to hand the mic over to her.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to start with tier 1 and then I'll go through the remaining tiers. As Jennifer previously mentioned, tier 1 instruction is delivered to all students. It's our gen ed curriculum and it reaches about 80% of the students. If less than 80% of the students are making growth with tier 1 instruction, then we know the classroom instruction needs to be adjusted. Tier 1 instruction is differentiated to meet the needs of all learners through our workshop models. And this specifically happens during the applying the skills portion of the lesson that Jennifer talked about earlier. And this is done in various ways. It's done through small groups and guided reading, independent practice, partner work, and one-to-one conferring between teacher and student. Through the MTSS process and teaching, all staff members are analyzing the data that's gathered not only from the benchmark assessments that Emily previously explained, but from classroom performance as well. And we have 6-week check-ins in addition to our benchmark meetings to ensure that students are making progress, which brings us to our next slide. When we find that students are performing between the 11th and 20th percentiles, we know that the tier 1 curriculum is not enough and that some interventions within the classroom is needed to bridge the learning. This looks like additional instruction in a specific skill. So for example, a student may need more practice with phonemic awareness, which is the rhyming or identifying beginning, middle, and end sounds. And that's usually done with the Heggerty program that Jennifer explained earlier. And these skills are all foundational skills needed to advance in reading. The teacher may use the Heggerty in small groups to further develop these skills. Likewise, if a student is struggling with decoding words with vowel teams, like for example, AI in the word rain, the teacher might do a small group lesson using Words Their Way or our phonics units of study small group book to address these specific needs. Again, this is in addition to the tier 1 instruction. So sometimes this level of support is not enough for the students, and so this further intervention is needed. And then this brings us to our tier 3 instruction. So tier 3 instruction is designed for students that are performing between the 1st and 10th percentiles, as identified on nationally normed assessments. So students that are performing within this range also receive the tier 1 and 2 instruction from their classroom teachers, but we know they need further instruction from an interventionist, either inside or outside of the classroom setting. Some of our reading interventions include, but are not limited to, the Foundations by Wilson to address decoding, encoding, and fluency. Leveled literacy intervention, we also call that LLI, and this is used to address comprehension and fluency. And then Heggerty is also used to address the phonological awareness. Again, we continue to monitor progress through curriculum-based measures and our AIMS web assessments to make adjustments to interventions every 6 to 8 weeks. If a student is not, or if a student is responding to the tier 3 intervention and demonstrates that intensive intervention is not needed, then the student may no longer need to be polled with an intervention teacher, but then we'll go back and receive tier 2 intervention within the classroom through small group instruction there. If a student is not responding to an intervention, then we know it needs to be adjusted and the program may be changed, or the intensity of the current program may need to be changed depending on the student and the needs. So on our next slide, we have a list of different programs that are used in small group interventions by grade level. So Explode the Code is like an app that's used through K to 2nd, and that addresses phonemic awareness and phonics. Then we have the Heggerty, again, being used in K1. 95% group is a phonics program that's used K through 8. Another tool that teachers can access is Florida Center Reading for reading research. We have Alexia that could be used with the direct instruction for K1, 2, and 3. And then a lot of students, as you guys probably see on your child's iPad at home, Raz Kids, but we also use that with direct instruction on the specific skill or strategy that a child or group of students may need. That's the same with Moby Max, which is also an app, but we have a direct instruction component. And then Words Their Way, again, is used for K to 5. That is a program that Jennifer explained earlier with making words based on specific phonics skills. And then we have Making Connections, Making Words, and Foundations. And then Just Words is used for the upper grades. And then we are passing it over to Donna Middleton.
Hello, everyone. Despite the efforts that are put forth by our students, our families, and teachers, some students do require intensive support through special education. Students who have been identified as having a disability rising to the qualification of an IEP do require direct instruction specifically targeted to the individual student and their identified needs. Based on the needs identified through the evaluation process, IEP teams draft specific, targeted, and measurable goals. IEP services are in addition to the core instruction and interventions a student receives within the classroom. And common areas that we address are phonemic awareness, decoding, encoding, oral reading fluency, reading comprehension, written production, or written mechanics. Special education teachers regularly monitor IEP goals on a weekly basis. Some of the tools used to progress monitor reading goals are listed here. Student progress toward goals is shared regularly with families through various modes of communication, but is formally shared through IEP progress reports, which are sent home 3 times a year with the student's report card, and in addition to a child's annual IEP meeting. District 97 is thrilled to be piloting 2 different writing interventions this school year. Key stakeholders will be involved in pilots of either Step Up to Writing or Writing Revolution for the 2nd and 3rd trimester of this school year. And the goal of the pilot is to identify a writing intervention to be utilized for students in special education. And now I will pass it over to Lauren Trout, who will review the specialized strategies we use to support our students.
Hello, everyone. Special education teachers use a variety of tools, resources, and curricula to address reading comprehension goals in a child's IEP. These could include leveled literacy intervention, Read 180, RAS Kids, modified reading strategies from Jennifer Sarabello's reading strategy book, along with comprehension components of the Wilson reading system. Slide. What is dyslexia and where does it fit into an IEP? Dyslexia is a reading or language-based disability identified as a difficulty to read, write, and/or spell. Examples of challenges of a student with dyslexia could include recognizing letters, matching letters to sounds, blending sounds into speech, pronouncing words, learning and correctly using new vocabulary terms, learning the alphabet or common word sequences, and rhyming. Next slide. The state of Illinois adopted the definition of dyslexia from the International Dyslexia Association, signed into law in 2014. ISB further notes that dyslexia is a specific learning disability that can adversely affect basic reading skills, reading fluency skills, reading comprehension, math calculation, mathematical problem solving, written expression, oral expression, as well as listening comprehension. State and federal guidelines ask that every effort is made to meet the needs of all students in the general education setting. Schools and educators are expected to implement strategies that address student needs under the MTSS framework. However, in some instances, the disability affects the student's education to such an extent that there's a need for more targeted interventions under special education. Next slide. Research has shown that students with mild, moderate, and even severe dyslexia can successfully learn to read and write through instruction that is direct, intensive, multisensory, structured, and provided by a skilled educator. Next slide. One curriculum utilized with students receiving special education in grades K through 2 is Foundations, which is a part of the Wilson reading system. Foundations is a research-based, multisensory, systematic approach to learning phonics and spelling patterns. Foundations can be used as a prevention or intervention, depending on the size of the group, frequency of the instruction, or the intensity of the intervention. Foundations teaches foundational reading skills, while scaffolding skills taught in an explicit, sequential, and a systematic manner. Right. Our special education teachers have observed great success using Foundations with students such as greater gains in letter recognition, sound knowledge, gains in oral reading fluency, improved phonemic awareness, and the ability to manipulate sounds, improved decoding of words in isolation, improved spelling of words, and gains in additional basic reading skills. Next slide. Here is a short snippet of a video of a student responding to the use of multisensory techniques in just one portion of a Foundations lesson. Let's take a look.
Chess.
Chess.
Tap it.
X.
Good. Build it. Good. What's the digraph sound making in this word? Good. Why is there a bonus letter in this word?
Because the E is short and the S is a bonus letter.
Awesome job, because the E is making a short S sound. Can you spell it away? Remember, spell it says the letter names. S-H.
S-H-E-S-S.
Awesome job.
Next slide. Another curriculum utilized with students receiving special education in grades 2 through 8 is Wilson Reading Systems. Wilson is a multisensory, systematic, and comprehensive approach to teaching reading based on extensive research and is to be considered an OG or Orton-Gillingham-based program. Wilson uses interactive methods to model, teach, and practice letters, sounds, word structures, spelling patterns, and sight words. Wilson is generally taught in a small group setting and is considered to be an intensive intervention. Wilson teaches skills in an incredibly explicit manner, using a systematic approach to each lesson component in a clearly defined sequence. D97 teachers do go through extensive year-long certification process with a Wilson Reading System consultant, and there are currently 28 special education teachers in the district who are considered level 1 certified. Next slide. Wilson reading lessons include 3 components: a decoding block, an encoding block, and a fluency and comprehension block. Wilson lessons are typically between 60 and 90 minutes in length, but they can be broken down over multiple days into smaller blocks. And it is suggested that students progress through at least 2 full lessons per week in order to make meaningful progress through the program. So how can families support their child's reading at home? Some suggestions include connecting with your child's teacher or case manager to gain access or copies to word lists, comprehension passages, or previously taught and mastered lessons to review at home. Model good reading skills aloud to your child. Utilize short reading passages to read repeatedly with multiple exposures to build fluency, confidence, and voice while reading. And when reading with your child, ask questions to check for understanding that elicit explanation or elaboration. We'll now transition to answering some additional pre-submitted questions.
Thank you, everyone. And I want to thank all of you in our audience for submitting questions to us. While we weren't able to answer every question, we did pull out those that were thematically similar, and we'll take some time to answer them now. Our first question: what is the review and evaluation process for the literacy curricular resources used in District 97?
Thank you, Dr. Lofton. This process begins with the curricular review cycle shown on the left side of the slide, which is a cycle we utilize to review and adopt resources for all grades and subject areas. This cycle spans through school year 2028 and incorporates 6 years of implementing an adopted resource or program before conducting a curricular review of other resources for that subject area. Our district will engage in a curricular review of reading and writing resources for grades K through 5 during school year 23-24. And the following year, teachers will pilot materials that are selected during the resource review year. Resource reviews and pilots consist of a 2-year process that includes teachers and school administrators in the decision-making process. During the resource review year, we identify teachers who are interested in participating on the resource review team. The team develops a mission statement that aligns with their learning objectives and outcomes. A great deal of time during the resource review is dedicated to the vendor presentations, in which various publishing companies present their resources to the team. The team selects or develops a standards aligned and culturally responsive evaluation tool that is used to select resources to pilot. During the pilot year, the team implements the program selected during the resource review. Pre and post assessments are also administered during each pilot to ensure we have adequate data to make an informed decision. Finally, we conduct teacher and student surveys to gather feedback on each program before recommending a resource for adoption. Next slide, please.
How is English learner performance, or EL performance, measured?
I will take this one. English learners are supported in the district through the Transitional Program of Instruction, or TPI model, which provides for both push-in and pull-out services with an EL or multilingual teacher. And it's based on a student's access scores and newcomer status. Yearly, students are monitored through the administration of the Access Assessment. And by trimester, staff utilizes curriculum-based measures, CADN and ESGI assessments, and time zone that comes from National Geographic curriculum to determine student progress. And then parents are provided trimester progress reports from EL staff for receiving, who are receiving EL services. Next slide.
How can we best support reading at home? Are there more strategies than just reading with our kids? We want children to love reading.
So there are a lot of things that you can do as a family to help your children or child love reading. So here are a couple of them. You could visit bookstores or libraries, and you don't always have to purchase those books, but you could window shop as you pass by. As always, you can encourage your child to read daily. One of the things that we hear most often from children is talking about your child seeing you engage in reading and talking about the books that you really love, as well as characters and themes. One thing that I think is really great would be to make a family book that is a collection of stories of your childhood that are retold generation after generation, or stories of family events. It's super important to help your child find a place in your home that is a favorite reading spot that might be comfy and cozy and really engaging and inviting. I know that you've heard this one before, but reading aloud to your child, talking about the pictures and the characters, I have heard before, and a lot of students have talked about how they read a story with their parent and then watched the video and then compared and contrast the video with the text, what parts were missing, maybe what was better, or which one they preferred, and then picking another text that maybe also would be made into a movie. You can encourage your child to read aloud to younger siblings, cousins, neighbors, or even a stuffed animal or a beloved pet. Partner reading with your child. encouraging your friends or relatives to give books to your child as gifts. Another really great one is to play word games such as Scrabble, Junior, Boggle, ABC Bingo, telling jokes, riddles, and limericks. One of my personal favorites is to leave notes for your child in their lunchbox or their school bag. You could leave notes around your house. You could encourage your child to write notes, as well as have them create to-do lists. Another childhood favorite of mine is to subscribe to a children's magazine and have that magazine sent directly to your child. It will literally light up their week, their day, to have that sent to their house in their name. And then finally, encouraging your child to write their own books, traveling with a composition notebook and having them write all about the experiences that they encounter day in and day out.
How do parents get their kids assessed for reading disabilities? Who's responsible for referring students to get assessed?
There are two ways that student services teams receive requests for an evaluation for special education. One is through parents. Parents are important partners in all aspects of their child's education. Share your concerns with your teacher. If concerns persist, it is best to put your request in writing. If you are unable to put your request in writing, the team facilitator, who is typically your school psychologist, can assist you with this request. The student services team will invite you to a meeting to discuss your request and determine next steps. The other way students are referred for special education services is through the school system. As early as preschool, the district hosts early childhood screenings to determine if a referral for an evaluation for special education is needed. In addition, once students are in elementary school, teachers and other support staff, they collect information about a student's learning to see if a referral for special education is warranted.
And finally, before we leave, we wanted to share that at the beginning of next year, so 2022, we will be sending out communication to determine if there's an interest in forming a dyslexia committee that will meet on a trimester basis to learn more about dyslexia and to work with the district to support students with dyslexia. So please stay tuned for that. And finally, thank you so much for your time and attention. You could have been anywhere this evening, but I'm glad you're here with us. Have an amazing night, and thank you once again. Have a good night, everyone.